disturbing things video. We have volume 15 and 16.
Buried deep in the footnotes of old troll posts is a cursed link, one which led millions of oblivious internet users to a simple landing page. Just a black screen, two obnoxious colors, and a button marked Enter. This was Kekma.ga, a bait-and-switch shock site, which, though age-gated, certainly shouldn't be viewed by anyone. It was launched in April 2019 by notorious internet sadist Obok Meatgod, the same gentleman behind womansalliance.xyz, who chose a domain name that blended Kek, or LOL, with MAGA. The site's purpose? To protest the safe and sterile, social media-dominated internet that had spread to browsers. To draw traffic, trolls and morbid pranksters advertised Kekma in bad faith. Bait links were shared on Discord servers, in the comment sections of historical and political YouTube videos, and on subreddits populated with young and naive users, like r/teenagers. Cool new Reddit.
But even Reddit isn't safe. I mean, there's NSFW stuff on Reddit all the time. You know? Like, on X as well. Like, is the mainstream internet that safe? I don't know. I don't feel like you need to go to a specialized site to see fucked up stuff.
Alternative, they'd say, or underground webcomic, a political discussion board, a meme treasure trove, anything.
How about Frenchman? What's the difference?
Within seconds of entering, unsuspecting users were hauled into one of the most violently offensive experiences the web has ever offered. Even if your volume was set to low, the site would emit a deafeningly loud, sustained screech, designed to damage the hearing of headphone users and give a minor heart attack to everyone else. At the same time, their browser window would forcefully switch to full screen mode. What appeared changed often. One of the many central videos was a medical recording of pork tapeworm cysts being squeezed from a human liver. Later, it evolved, or devolved, into a clip of a bloodied man squatting in a bathtub, forcing a large metal object into his urethra. Flashing incessantly behind this central video was a rapid-fire montage of pure depravity. These images also changed often, and included a man whose face had been mauled by a bear, another of a person who held onto a firecracker for too long, photoshopped corpses, dogs being skinned alive at meat markets, and other ambiguous gore. Alt F4ing wasn't an option. Trying to exit the site would only result in a dialog box pop-up, unknown JavaScript.
I never know how this bullshit works because I remember, like, I haven't seen that in an eternity, but, you know, from 2010-15 when I first got onto the internet, you know, this happened to me quite a few times, this kind of, well, not, you know, a shock site, but this kind of bullshit where, like, it forces you full screen and it blocks you, and Alt F4, trying to bring up the task manager or anything just doesn't work. I don't understand how that happens. And the only way to make it work is to restart your PC by pressing the actual button. And then when you relaunch your browser, like, quickly closing the tab before it loads. Or I guess disconnect to the internet before it loads. Yeah.
Trick that prevented escape. Kekma.ga spread like wildfire through word of mouth, drawing millions of eyes. And just like the Women's Alliance, Obok defended his creation, stating that he gave every visitor a chance to turn back, and, mostly due to legal concerns, he chose not to include malware. But the site itself was a virus of another kind. Not one that infected your system, but your brain. Those most indoctrinated described themselves as the Kekma crew, so-called members of gamerkind who created hateful content targeting women and minorities. Kekma was blacklisted in many countries as a result. The site continuously reincarnated, from
it just sounds like Fortunate
XYZ, and finally to Kekma.net. Though it never truly broke through to the mainstream, it didn't need to. It slipped between the cracks and corrupted many a developing mind. Young people, who, if anything, were only drawn in by the warning on the landing page, thinking it was all part of the joke. And then the joke became tricking other youngsters with the same link. Online violence isn't a new phenomenon by any means, but it is certainly becoming more prevalent and being shared more casually. And with so much real-life horror and hate just a click away, children aren't just being exposed to it, they're learning to laugh at it. Just look at the recent epidemic of AI gore on TikTok, where real-life tragedies are being filtered through apps like Runway and given a Minions or Lego paint job. These clips aren't just being made for children, but by them.
I was gonna say it's one of those things where like it's always we're in the middle of it right now with the verify your age kind of thing on the internet. But I guess it's always been a thing, right? And I was literally thinking again, like, people always say like the internet is not for kids. Like even the mainstream site, YouTube, Reddit, all that, it's obviously not for kids. And people's definition of kid will, kind of like differentiate. Like some sites, I think it's 13, the minimum or something. Some it's like 16. Some it's literally like whatever is the legal age in your country. So like 18 or 21, right? But it is definitely one of those things. And for me, again, like, I have definitely been part of the kids who've been on the internet early enough, well, too early to see gore stuff, and I still did. Like, when I was on the internet between 2010 and 15, I was like between 12 and 16. And, again, just on Reddit, even to this day, yesterday I was, I look at like the popular posts on Reddit every day, like the overall popular post of all the subreddits. And I feel like yesterday I watched one where like it was on some Reddit like that's very popular, like crazy fucking videos, and it was some motorbiker like impaling his leg onto a branch or something, and there was like front page, popular post front page, and I don't even think there was like an NSFW warning, or maybe I've got that disabled, I don't know. And I just watched it like casually. I was like, oof, that must hurt, and just moved on because again, yeah, I am to an extent, not to everything, but to stuff like that, a bit desensitized, right? And that's maybe because, yeah, like when I was younger, between 2010 and 15, I would go to Reddit too, and there was a lot more like openly extreme gore on Reddit. Same thing on YouTube, actually. Like it used to be a lot more, normal to have gore on YouTube too. And back then I wouldn't say it really desensitized me because I remember like a lot of videos and stuff shocking me. And after like a while, I started actively avoiding it because literally like they made me kind of sick. Videos of mass shooting or stuff like that. So for years, I actively avoided it. But obviously, when you think about it, like a lot of the kids won't have the same reaction to it. Maybe for me it was because maybe I was already like old enough to have some empathy or something. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, right? Like the right feelings to look at it and be like, this is fucked up. But at the same time, everybody is at a different age. And so, yeah, it's really easy to think that, like, a lot of us from, like, we've been on the internet from in the 90s, 2000s, or early 2010s, we were young, but, like, still a bit older than, like, the generation of young that we have now that gets on the internet. Like, the problem that has been over the last 10 years with, like, even kids, like, at 5 years old, they have, like, a phone, right? And a PC or something, is that, yeah, like, this is another different level of young, right? And I'm not saying that, like, us, the older generation, were more, like, prepared for all the gore and fucked up of the internet. Clearly, a lot of people didn't end up right because of all of it. But I still think we are, like, older enough that most of us weren't as fucked up in the head because of it. But then again, the problem today is that the age has kept going down of, like, the level of kids on the internet, right? So yeah, it is a problem when you think about it, especially because, as you said, I don't go to TikTok myself, but it seems to be so prevalent to have all this fucked up stuff, front page and all that. And the problem is that now the kids are even younger, before they formed like any kind of like maybe the normal empathy and right thoughts about life, death, murder, gore, and stuff like that. And so seeing this kind of stuff that young is making it that they right away form the warped view of it all. Does that make sense? That's what I was thinking, because again, I was young and a lot of us were young back in the day, but I think, back in the day, you still weren't that level of young that they are today to get on the internet and see all this fucked up stuff. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of rambled there. Yeah.
Up and posted by those already desensitized, thanks to sites like Kekma. In February 2022, without warning, Kekma.net shut down,
It still lasted 3
According
years.
to Obok, Kekma was an experiment, a test to see how far shock could spread online, without ads, without PR, just through links. But it didn't die. Mirrors popped up. Community sites stayed active. By October, Kekma.net was live once again, back by popular demand. Because for some guinea pigs, Obok's experiment had a lasting impact. You've probably never heard of names like Spokio, Truthfinder, or Being Verified.
I do understand morbid curiosity, you know. Like even I, as I said, like sometime on Reddit, I'm scrolling on a popular post and, you know, I read the headline of the post and I see NSFW, click to show it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to see it. But then 2 seconds later, I still look at it, you know. So I understand morbid curiosity.
But they have definitely heard of you. These are data brokers, and their entire business model is harvesting your personal
I'll pass.
and offers up.
Wait, so I guess that's it about Kekma? Just saying that like it's a fucked up site and it's back? Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I don't know what to say about that one. Again, I feel like on even the mainstream site you can see a lot of fucked up stuff. You really don't need to go out of your way to find this kind of site. But hey, fair enough.
A special thanks to Martin H. for bringing this entry to my attention. Between 2017 and 2021, Norwegian-born Marius Gustavsson, a man with zero medical training, operated a secret network of extreme body modification from his basement flat in Haringey, North London. But he wasn't offering tattoos or piercings. Gustavsson's service was far more radical and far more dangerous. What he offered was nullification surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
In the underground body mod scene, nullos are people, almost always men, who've had their reproductive organs removed. Most identify as having had their gender nullified, with many opting for a
castration?
a completely smooth look down there, akin to an Action Man or G.I. Joe. For some, it's about identity. For others, it's a fantasy or a mental compulsion. But for Gustavsson, it was a business. You see, online, Gustavsson went by a different name. Eunuch Maker.
Yeah,
on his website, theem.com, he targeted those with body integrity identification disorder, a rare condition characterized by a persistent and intense desire to have body parts removed, usually because they feel like foreign objects.
Man, this reminds me, talking about Reddit again, a couple of days ago, there was a post about there was some surgeon, I think, in the US, who was an amputee surgeon, you know, like, he would be the one in charge, I think, of people who needed a limb removed because they were dead or something. And eventually it turned out that he lost both of his legs. But it turns out that he actually did it to himself because he had a fetish of amputation. And it's insane, obviously, right? And it also makes all the patient before, you know, that he was the one to tell them, I think you need to be amputated, makes them reconsider everything, right? Like, did he do it because I really needed to, or because he just, like, said so? It reminds me of that. Insane people.
Specifically, Gustavsson offered to turn people into nullos for low prices. No consultation required. No pesky psychiatrists involved. Acceptance guaranteed. Problem was,
I mean, can you even do this legally? Can you go to a doctor and say, I want my private parts removed? Is that even possible? I know about, you know, sex change operation and all that, but is it quite the same?
The idea is so rare that building a business model on back alley operations alone wasn't going to keep the lights on. But one thing that the internet's never been short of is morbidly curious degenerates. Through his site, Gustavsson set up a pay-per-view service, a red room of sorts, though not one dedicated to snuff. He rigged his flat with cameras and turned it into a black market surgery centre. For an annual subscription of £100, or £35 during the New Year's sale, so-called VIPs could watch Eunuch Maker perform his surgeries live. Through encrypted forums and online groups,
Just
Gustavsson
imagining
recruited volunteers,
makes me want to puke.
young men, one as young as 16, who had fallen deep into the online nullo rabbit hole. He offered to remove any unwanted bits and pieces, free of charge, provided they didn't mind their procedure being live-streamed. Then, for the viewing pleasure of his paying customers, he'd give his victims kitchen table surgeries.
I mean, there's so many more questions, right? I assume that you use anesthesia. And, maybe the surgery goes fine, right? But what after that? I mean, this seems like the kind of stuff that would have like a lot of aftercare to be done. You would need some like strong medication for the pain. Also, how do you even pee? Do you have an hole? And also, yeah, like, how would you get strong medication? Because this isn't like any kind of licensed guy.
Amputations, castrations, and panectomies, using makeshift
Panectomies.
tools like kitchen knives and livestock clamps. Some procedures involve slicing, or even worse, crushing the patient's most sensitive parts. Others included electric shocks, sub-zero freezing, or injection with various chemicals. He even branded his patients with the initials EM using a red-hot iron. To drive engagement, Gustafsson sometimes played a dice game live on stream to decide which body part should be removed next. Given how crude these life-threatening operations were, things inevitably went wrong, usually as a result of blood loss. During one episode, a patient was heard crying, "I don't want to die," while he hemorrhaged. Several patients had to be rushed to hospital to be saved by actual medical professionals.
Like, on one side, I want to say these people clearly were not well in the head, they had some disorder and some mental health issues. But also, like, there's not being well in the head and going to a place like this. I mean, I don't know. Like, clearly this guy, they're the victim and this guy is the piece of shit. But even then, as always, sometimes I feel like I am lacking empathy because I do have a bit of empathy for these people, but also I'm like, you went to this fucking place, to this madness. I don't know.
And at least one client lost function in his hands. On the phone to emergency services, Gustafsson would lie, describing how his patients had actually injured themselves. Over the years, the EM website received plenty of traffic, as many as 300,000 visits per day, with 23,000 users signed up for the VIP membership package.
That's crazy.
Analytics confirmed that this little venture had global appeal. The site had active users in every single country bar one, North Korea. Needless to say, it was a lucrative enterprise. As a side hustle, Gustafsson would pickle the removed body parts and sell them to customers. As one of his IRL friends recalled, "My partner and I were there when a sale went
How the
down."
fuck did this run for years and that many people paid for it? I mean, this isn't a case of like, losing more trust in humanity. I mean, that's insane.
He used the money to buy pizza. It wasn't a lot. But not all of the sliced-off appendages were sold. Gustafsson kept some as souvenirs, storing them in jars and displaying them over his bed. He was even known to serve private parts for lunch and film mukbangs for his audience. The occasional sausage platter or a salad with nuts, he joked. This wasn't just a dark niche though. The EM.com had become a kind of cult of mutilation. Gustafsson surrounded himself with acolytes, fans, and partners who helped to spread his influence. And for years, nobody stopped him. He even had his closest followers perform procedures on him. In his words, he had had himself turned into a Ken doll with nothing down there. Additionally, he had his left leg frozen with dry ice. From then on, he had to use a wheelchair.
I think that's what the guy that I talked about earlier that was at an amputation fetish did. He put both of his legs in dry ice. Is what it turned out.
Claimed £18,000 in disability benefits from the government. But EM's business would come crashing down in 2021, when one courageous victim approached Devon and Cornwall police with a USB stick. It contained over 5,000 watts.
I'm really feeling like I'm not thinking right now. Like, I want to have more empathy for the victims. I feel like I don't have enough right now. I don't know. I guess that's what's being on the internet for too long does, yeah. Like, more time passes, the more sometimes I feel like, I still always have like a little bit of empathy for victims, but I guess it's just that I can't relate, right? Like, I've been in a very bad place in my head. but not to the point of wanting my body part cut by some crazy guy live streaming it. So I have a hard time relating to like that level of not being well in your head, you know? And yeah, I feel like my empathy is failing me a little bit here, and I don't like it, you know? I don't like feeling like that. I'm still a victim, no doubt. But I just can't even realize that like we're on the same level of human being in terms of like thinking. How do you get to the point of thinking that, you know, like I want my body parts removed by some guy in a dank basement, not a professional, all that.
WhatsApp messages, more than 100 images, and multiple videos, all documenting what had been done to him. He described how he had been drugged before the backstreet surgeon began cutting into him with a scalpel. At one point, he said that he was strapped to a bed and electrocuted. A digital viewing team of 6 officers watched over 400 hours of footage to help identify Gustafsson's numerous assistants. After a complex investigation, British authorities arrested 46-year-old Gustafsson and 6 co-conspirators. Charges ranged from grievous bodily harm to the distribution of material involving minors. Prosecutors described Gustafsson as a master manipulator who controlled and exploited vulnerable young men under the guise of being their friend. For his victims, they said, the horror was both physical and psychological. Some of them later admitted to feeling coerced, misled, or even brainwashed into becoming nullos. Others said that they were mesmerized, seeing the calm and confident eunuch maker in the flesh. In response, his defense team played the Joker card, saying that the Norwegian only wanted to put a smile on people's faces, both those he was transforming and those who were watching his live streams. And besides, all of his patients had consented to their procedures. But consenting to extreme body mods isn't a defense in the UK. Aside from tattoos and piercings, pretty much every modification is illegal, or dubiously legal at best. And so, in May 2024, at the Old Bailey in London, Gustafsson was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 22 years. The judge described him as the architect of a deeply disturbing enterprise, one that blurred the line between consent and exploitation, fantasy and irreversible harm. Gustafsson showed no remorse, not for the crimes he had committed, nor for the lasting physical and psychological damage he had inflicted. This story shocked even the darkest corners of the internet.
I am feeling sick.
Gustafsson didn't invent the idea of nullification, but he did turn that subculture into something predatory. And even now, remnants of his network remain online.
I mean, that's the thing that I'm thinking is the worst about this. He had 23,000 paying subscribers and ton more like non-paying people watching. So there's no doubt that there's clearly a big market about this. And now that he's gone, there's no doubt there's probably other people who will try to make money of this in different countries. So this is a thing that's going to continue. Yeah, I mean, I think this comes back to the idea of people never think that they would be someone to fall for a cult or a scam. You know, like you think you're too smart for that, but you do. I think this is where my empathy kind of fails. Like, but at the same time, I do realize that it's stupid because I've almost felt for scam before, even like as recently as a year or two, you know. Not anything like a cult. Like, that doesn't happen to me. But yeah, you know, it's the kind of thing where like, I've got to remember that sometimes you get to such a broken mind state that you just are willing to do even the most insane things like this. So I do still have some empathy for the victim, yeah. Obviously. But the scary thing about this, again, is that this is probably not done. I mean, there'll be a lot of copycat, I assume, with the money clearly they can make from this. I mean, I can't do math, but it was what, £100 or something? 100 times 23,000 comes to 230,000 that he was making a year at least. For like mutilating people. It's fucked up. Seriously, like this one really, really fucks me up. Like it's terrifying to think that there was 20,000 people paying for this. Okay, well, let's continue. Like for once, I feel like truly disturbing. Like, you know, because a lot of the other like stuff is disturbing, but to a level that I'm kind of used to with the internet. But this one, fucking hell, disturbing. Beanbag adventure.
Most towns have their fair share of abandoned buildings, and most of them tell the same old story. Mold, neglect, the slow decay of something that used to matter. If you were to go urban exploring in the rundown remnants of a former school, hospital, or factory, you'd likely find little else other than broken glass, rusty bed frames, discarded stationery, or the occasional mattress.
Yeah.
Echoes of life, long since emptied out. But what one Chinese explorer discovered was anything but typical.
Buddies.
In February 2022, a Bilibili and Douyin user known as Beanbag Adventure uploaded footage of what appeared to be an abandoned air raid bunker, one supposedly located in Jilin province.
Doesn't look like a bunker,
At
it's
first,
outside.
The video felt like your standard urbex fare. But as Beanbag ventured further through the upper hallways and rooms, he came across some unsettling items. Empty medical bottles, children's masks, a suitcase containing a high heel, and what appeared to be human bones. As Beanbag described, a distinctive smell of rot permeated the air, and it slowly became more noticeable, more putrid. He followed his nose into the depths of the structure, making his way through claustrophobic concrete tunnels, hoping to find the source of the foul stench.
It's not the kind of stairs I want to walk
To
on.
one particular chamber, a makeshift laboratory with medical bottles and children's clothes on the ground. Through a voiceover, Beanbag warned viewers that they were about to see something that wasn't for the weak of stomach. The camera panned into what looked like a pool or vat. Inside it was a murky liquid and approximately 20 to 25 bloated bodies in various stages of decomposition.
What the fuck?
Judging by their shape and size, most, if not all of them, were children and toddlers. Beanbag insisted that the bodies were props, hinting that he had to say that for the algorithm. He then repeatedly told viewers to pay attention.
Okay. Man, I didn't know that Bilibili had the same thing. Or Douyin. I see. I guess Chinese, you know, video maker, I was gonna say YouTuber, but video maker have the same problem of having to, you know, say unalive and stuff like that, I see.
Attention to the details. After examining the water, he walked off screen and began gagging.
What kind of madness is
At
this?
the time, most people took Beanbag's comment that these were movie props at face value, assuming that the video had been staged. As a result, it didn't receive too much attention. But in a second video, filmed on December 26th, 10 months after his first visit, Beanbag returned.
Wait, so you didn't report it to
The
a cop?
camera lingered on the pool. Eerily, the fluid level was noticeably lower, with most of the bodies now floating on the surface. What convinced many that they were real and not props was that the exposed portions of flesh had noticeably decomposed since the first video, while the submerged areas remained mostly intact. Based on its color and the context, many assumed the liquid to be formalin, a common preservative made up of 37% formaldehyde. A tarp-like screen had also been partially pulled over the tank, perhaps in an effort to stop the formula from evaporating. And if it wasn't Beanbag who had moved it, that raised a question. Was someone maintaining the site? Monitoring the state of the bodies? If so, for what purpose? Wading through sludge that reached up to his ankles, Beanbag returned for a third visit a few days later, where he discovered jars with what looked like fetuses suspended in liquid. One container held a reassembled human spine. Plastic bags sat nearby, filled with adult bones, some still bearing metal pins and brackets, the kind used in anatomical displays. These two December videos set the Chinese internet ablaze. Under Beanbag's videos, a few theorized that the children in the solution had fallen victim to black market organ harvesting, a hugely profitable business in China, a country where, for cultural reasons, organ donors are few and far between, and yet a place where transplants are somehow readily
average wait for liver transplant, USA 240 days, in some cases up to 5 years, varies by state, and China's 714 days, in some cases a matter of hours, controversial on demand system.
Available for wealthy tourists and the elite. These children, they said, had no doubt been abducted for their valuable insights. At some point between February and December, their killers had returned to the facility, deemed the half-preserved specimens unsalvageable, and abandoned the operation. Thing is, covering a body in formaldehyde renders the internal organs unusable, so why keep them in a formalin bath to begin with? Well, some of the remains seemed to be missing their eyes and showed signs of having been cut open, so it's possible that they had been placed in the solution after having already been harvested. With that in mind, many netizens reached the same chilling conclusion: that this was a corpse farm. As detailed by user Cone Report on the r/no rules subreddit, in China there's a significant market, often opaque, for preserved human specimens. Those used for medical training, university research, and museum exhibits. Though it sounds niche, the economics suggest otherwise. As mentioned in my E-Cuerpos coverage, a single cadaver, properly processed, can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Globally, the industry is worth millions, and China is the world leader in exports, with private and state-run facilities processing bodies on an industrial scale. One of the most infamous facilities was established south of Jilin in the early 2000s, namely Von Hagen's Dalian Plastination Co. Limited. The founder, German anatomist Gunther von Hagens, pioneered a process called plastination, which preserves fresh bodies by replacing fluids and fat with plastic polymers. Said bodies can then be
different from
turned into
stuffing.
artworks. You're no doubt familiar with the exhibition Body Walls, which tours globally, attracts millions of visitors, and is featured in movies like Casino Royale. That's von Hagen's work. Since its inception, the venture has generated hundreds of millions in profits, but controversy has always followed his work. Von Hagens has openly admitted that he hasn't always been sure where his specimens came from, and that many were simply fresh, unclaimed bodies from China. In one documented case, he returned 7 models to Chinese suppliers after learning that the bodies may have come from executed prisoners. Around that same time, China launched a sweeping crackdown on Falun Gong, a spiritual movement with as many as 70 million followers. For those Falun Gong members who were unable to escape China, the consequences were severe. Many were forced underground, or detained, or sent to re-education and labor camps. Others were tortured, or disappeared entirely. Among the victims were Yun Zhang and her husband, Song Tao. In 1999, Song was sent to a labor camp without trial, targeted simply for his beliefs. Guards tortured him with electric batons, trying to force a renunciation of his faith. He died under their hands. Yun was given an urn, supposedly containing his ashes, but he had been cremated before she could even identify him. 2 years later, in 2001, Yun herself disappeared at the age of 29. As of 2025, her fate remains unknown.
Man, this is probably like the most disturbing video I've ever seen. On YouTube at least. Like between the first case of the human body cutter guy and this one. I mean, this is like just insane.
The Falun Gong purge continues to this day. In 2022 alone, the same year Beanbag uploaded his video, an estimated 172 Falun Gong members were executed, many without a trial.
1.5 million.
Groups have since raised concerns that some of the bodies used in plastination, or anatomical exports more generally, may have come from Falun Gong prisoners. Further suspicion was fueled by von Hagen's reported ties to Bo Xilei, the mayor of Dalian, who allegedly helped support the facility by providing von Hagen with the bodies of Falun Gong members and the victims of organ trafficking. Bo's wife, Gu Kailei, was later convicted of murder and corruption, adding more fuel to online speculation. One rumor in particular refuses to die. In the late 1990s, Bo Xilei was rumored to have had an affair with local celebrity Zhang Weiji. After becoming pregnant, Zhang decided to go public with the news. Days later, she vanished. Subsequently, a plastinated model appeared in one of von Hagen's exhibits, one of a pregnant woman, dramatically posed, one hand on her head. The resemblance to Zhang sparked rumors. Some claimed the body was Zhang.
I'm really
No DNA
disturbed.
test was ever performed, and eventually, the fleshy statue was quietly removed. In Cohn Report's mind, the figure's hand was oriented like that to hide the bullet hole in the back of her head. Von Hagen's legal team denied those allegations, and today, the company insists it no longer sources human remains from China. But even with von Hagen's factory gone, many clandestine processing facilities do continue to operate in Jilin and Dalian to this day, exporting bodies to similar exhibits around the globe. The question is, in a country where organ and body donation is a cultural taboo, are there really so many willing volunteer donors that they need numerous cadaver processing plants concentrated in the same area? For obvious reasons, many believe that there's something shady going on. This has led to people debating if the victims in the beanbag uploads were the children of purged Falun Gong members.
Okay, but he keeps saying, like, you know, theories debating. Did the cop never check that location in the beanbag upload?
If they were acquired from orphanages, hospitals, or kidnapping rings, and if their own government had a hand in what was happening. Now here's where caution comes in. Despite the viral reaction to Beanbag Adventure's second and third videos, no independent verification has confirmed what he filmed.
Yeah, did anyone else
There
go?
have been no official investigations, no forensic follow-up, and no third-party analysis of the site. While the footage appears extremely convincing, and the body's graphically realistic, it's possible it was staged, either as an elaborate hoax, an art project, or a social commentary piece. The idea of corpse farms, while real, has also been a favorite trope in Chinese horror media. So without clearer proof, the claim that this bunker was part of an illegal body processing network remains speculative.
I mean, I guess you could say the cops are in on it or whatever, but if the cops didn't come out about this, maybe it is fake?
Even so,
I don't know.
the imagery stuck, and the context, the very real history of unethical body sourcing in China, gives the videos weight. As for Beanbag Adventure, after posting the footage, his account was banned, and he vanished from social media for nearly 2 months. When his account was reinstated, he continued posting Urbex content as if nothing had happened, deleted the bunker videos, and never mentioned or referenced them again.
Okay.
Was it all a hoax? Or had he been warned to never speak of his discovery, lest he end up on the body market himself? We may never know for sure, but if the so-called props were real, 3 questions still linger. Who were these children? Who put them in the formalin bath? And are they still floating there as we speak?
And if it's real, why haven't the cop done anything? Man, that was a rabbit hole. That was a fucking rabbit hole. You know, I know organ harvesting is a thing in the world, but I didn't realize to this level. This video like makes me realize to what level. Also, I'd never heard of this German guy system of like stuffing people, but like in a more realistic way or whatever. Yeah, this video is fucked. Hopefully the sound case is not as bad. This is fucked. Amy Lynn Bradley.
In the 1990s, cruise ships promised luxury, freedom, and tropical escape. But behind the glossy brochures and smiling star photos was a different reality.
Maybe I know this
of lax
one.
security, minimal oversight, and jurisdictional loopholes that left passengers shockingly vulnerable. Surveillance
Maybe
was
not.
limited. Background checks were loose. And once you were at sea, you were at the mercy of the ship's own internal systems, not the laws of any single country. It was the perfect setting for someone to vanish without a trace. And in 1998, that's exactly what happened to 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley.
I was born in
At the
1998.
time, Amy lived just outside of Richmond, Virginia, with her parents, Ivor and Ron, and her brother, Brad. By pure luck, her parents had won a pair of cruise tickets through a sweepstake at Ron's company, And, being generous, they offered to pay for Amy and Brad to join them on the trip of a lifetime. Amy was initially hesitant. Although she loved swimming, she had a mild phobia of the open ocean. She also had a fear of heights, and the upper deck of the cruise ship was 105 feet above the waterline. However, when her brother Brad accepted their offer, so did Amy. The siblings were close, and in spite of her phobias, she saw it as a good opportunity to enjoy a week of sun, sightseeing, and family bonding. On March 21st, the Bradleys boarded the Rhapsody of the Seas, an 11-deck cruise liner operated by Royal Caribbean, bound for the island of Curacao. On the morning of March 23rd, the ship docked in Aruba. Amy and her relatives spent the day exploring the island. That evening, the Bradleys all got dressed up for dinner, where the ship's photographer took pictures of them in their formal wear. Amy drew a lot of attention during dinner, not just from other passengers, but also from crew members. Several waiters had suggested taking her to Carlos and Charlie's while they were docked in Aruba, incidentally, the same venue where Natalie Holloway would disappear 7 years later. Amy turned down their offers, telling her dad that they gave her the creeps. In fact, Amy expressed repeated discomfort throughout those first days of the cruise, telling her family that she felt uneasy around certain crew members and didn't want to leave the ship unaccompanied. After dinner, the Bradleys changed back into their casual clothes. While Amy and Brad went to the onboard casino, their mother went to buy their formal photos, only to notice that all of the pictures of Amy were gone. The photographer recalled printing the images, though was unsure who had removed them. He reprinted them for Ivor, who assumed there must have been some sort of mix-up. Later, Amy and Brad headed to the Viking Lounge, a nightclub on the 9th floor deck. They danced, had a few drinks, and returned to their cabin at around 3:35 a.m. on the 24th. The two stayed up, talking on their balcony, discussing their upcoming plans for Curacao. Eventually, Brad went to bed, leaving Amy alone outside. At 5:30 a.m., their father, Ron Bradley, briefly awoke and looked out the window. Amy was still out on the balcony, asleep on a lounge chair. "I could see Amy's legs from her hips down," he would later report. "I dozed back off to sleep. The balcony door was closed. I would have got up and closed it otherwise." But when Ron awoke again at 6 a.m., that same balcony door had been half opened, and Amy was gone. Her shoes, ID, and belongings were still in the cabin. In that 30-minute window, she had seemingly evaporated, but her cigarettes were gone, and there was evidence that she had changed her clothes. Walking off in the early hours was completely unlike Amy. Her father knew that she would have at least left a note. Thus, after spending half an hour searching the upper decks for Amy, Ron began to panic. The ship had just docked in Curacao, and early birds were already preparing to disembark. At 6:30 a.m., he alerted the crew and urged them to lock down the ship. "Don't let anyone off this boat," he told them. "Someone has my daughter." His request for an announcement to be made over the intercom was rejected, and the captain intentionally delayed a vessel-wide search, as he didn't want to cause alarm and kill the Calypso atmosphere. Shortly thereafter, the gangway was lowered, and most of the ship's 2,000 passengers disembarked for the day. If Amy had been taken, this moment would have given someone the perfect window to smuggle her off. At 7:50 a.m., when the majority of passengers were already on the island, the crew finally made a single, quiet announcement. "Will Amy Bradley please come to the purser's desk?" She never did. Some crew members believe that Amy must have fallen overboard. Perhaps after waking up on the balcony, she had stumbled up and over the railing. That seemed to be the simplest explanation. But the Bradleys dismissed that theory quickly. Not only were the railings very high, and Amy very short, but she was also a former lifeguard and a strong swimmer. What's more, they were near the shore. Add to that her fear of heights and the open ocean, and her family were certain that she wouldn't have willingly gone near the railing.
I think that's fair, yeah.
When others suggested that she may have already disembarked the vessel that morning, the Bradleys stated that she had no reason to disappear. Instead, they believed that someone on board knew what happened to her, and so did several other passengers. When news of the incident spread, 2 witnesses came forward, claiming to have seen Amy at 5:45 a.m. taking a glass elevator to the top deck, supposedly in the company of a Royal Caribbean employee. That employee was later identified as Alistair Yellow Douglas.
So then we have more reason to suspect the employees.
A third witness claimed to have seen Amy in yellow at 6 a.m, just before the ship docked at Curacao. "I saw Amy and the band member walk over and up to the next deck above us," alleged the witness. "He handed her a dark-colored drink, maybe coffee. About 10 minutes later, he came walking around by himself." These tips set off alarm bells in Brad's head. Before Amy's disappearance had been publicly announced, Yellow had approached him and said, "I'm sorry to hear
video
about
a true crime that happened on a cruise ship.
When an editor on board named Chris Fenwick heard about Amy's disappearance, he checked video footage taken at the Viking Lounge the night prior. Eerily, his cameraman had inadvertently captured these shots of Amy dancing with a bald-headed man. One Alistair Yellow Douglas. Curiously, Chris would later receive a call from the ship's head of security, one Lou Costello, and was told that he would need to hand over the master tapes. Chris refused to give them up, fearing that the cruise company wanted to erase as much evidence as possible to protect their image. As if to confirm his suspicion, Royal Caribbean lawyered up almost immediately and shut down all communication with the Bradley family. The company was no stranger to controversies, with their ships having been the setting of multiple SAs and deaths in the past. After being identified as a possible suspect, Yellow was questioned by the FBI on March 25th. He admitted to dancing with Amy at the nightclub and claimed that they parted ways at about 1 a.m. Apparently, he took the staff elevator and she walked off in the opposite direction. He said he didn't see her again after that. His polygraph test results were deemed inconclusive, so basically how all polygraph results should be viewed anyway, and due to a lack of evidence, he was allowed to walk. According to Amy's father, Yellow left that interview with a big smile on his face, flashing a thumbs up to his bandmates. Meanwhile, search dogs brought on board traced Amy's scent to the gangway.
I mean, that doesn't mean too much, right? If he's innocent, he might be super happy that it seems like, it's proven that he wasn't the guy. I don't know.
The exit used by passengers to leave the ship. That single clue backed the family's worst fear, that Amy may have been taken ashore against her will. The Bradleys stayed behind in Curacao as authorities launched a 4-day search of the surrounding islands and waters. Unfortunately, no trace of Amy was found anywhere. When they learned that the initial search of the ship hadn't been thorough, the Bradleys reboarded and ensured that every nook and cranny was checked. Again, there was no sign of their missing daughter.
I mean, if she was assaulted and killed, they would have just thrown her overboard, right? Best way to get rid of a body.
Amy's devastated loved ones were forced to catch a flight home without her. It began to seem as if she really had fallen into the ocean.
But
then came the sightings. The first occurred 5 months after Amy disappeared, when 2 Canadian tourists reported seeing a distressed woman on a Curacao beach being escorted by 2 aggressive men. It was clear that she wanted to get their attention. "The second she heard me speaking English, she sped up," recalled one of the tourists. "She was trying to get away from them. I was 2 feet away." But before the woman could open her mouth, the 2 men ushered her away. The tourist described the woman's tattoos: a gecko on her stomach, a Tasmanian devil on her shoulder, a symbol on her ankle, and a rising sun on her back. All 4 matched Amy's.
Oh shit.
Even more chilling, they said that one of the men flanking Amy looked exactly like Alistair Yellow Douglas. Authorities returned to the island to investigate, but once again, they found nothing. A year later, in 1999, a petty officer serving in the US Navy entered a Curacao brothel. While drinking in the bar area, a woman approached him and said
she was taken to a brothel.
Amy Bradley. She begged him for help, saying that she was being held there against her will. Initially, the officer didn't report the incident, fearing disciplinary action for being in an unauthorized area. Instead, he simply told the woman where his ship was docked. 2 men then arrived and ordered her upstairs. The officer came forward with this information in 2002, after he had retired, of course, when he saw a photo of that same woman in a magazine discussing Amy Bradley's disappearance. By the time his tip reached the authorities, the building had already burned down. Any potential records were gone.
That's so fucked, huh? Seriously.
In late 1999, the Bradley family received yet another glimmer of hope from a man named Frank Jones. He claimed to be a former Navy SEAL in command of an elite team of mercenaries. According to him, she was being held inside a heavily guarded compound. Frank sent them photos of a woman bearing Amy's tattoos, convincing the Bradleys that his intel was sound. For months, Frank kept feeding them updates, sightings, movements, plans for a daring rescue. But there was a catch.
Okay.
He needed money. With the help of the National Missing Children's Organization, the Bradleys wired him over $200,000 to fund the operation. They waited for the call that Amy had been freed, but it never came.
Oh my god.
Frank Jones was a con artist, not a soldier.
Man, this poor family.
He'd fabricated the whole story and staged the photos using an actress. In 2002, Frank was charged with defrauding the Bradleys. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 years. In
Piece of
2005,
shit.
another witness spotted a woman in a department store bathroom in Barbados, visibly distressed and accompanied by 3 men. The witness reported hearing the males threaten her, telling her she had to go through with the deal before stepping outside of the restroom. Seizing the moment, the witness approached the woman and asked if she was okay. The woman, shaken and scared, whispered, "My name's Amy. I'm from Virginia." But before the witness could react, the men burst back in and led the woman away. These sketches were drawn up based on the witness's description of the suspects. AI Witness Report have since released these enhanced composites.
We're doing this with AI
these
now.
sightings could be chalked up to cases of mistaken identity or more fraudsters after reward money. After all, the FBI was offering a $25,000 reward for information that helped to bring an end to the investigation, while the Bradley family were offering a substantial $250,000 reward of their own. But here's where things become an internet mystery. In 2005, photographs of a woman resembling an older Amy, tired, gaunt, and frightened,
I don't know if she looks
online.
like her.
The images had originally been posted on a now defunct website advertising adult holidays in the Caribbean. Her name was listed as Jazz. An independent forensic expert examined the photos and concluded that they were a near-perfect match for Amy.
Really?
In his opinion, the facial structure, hairline, and piercings lined up completely. These pictures have since fueled online discussion and led many to believe that Amy was smuggled off the cruise liner and enslaved by a human trafficking ring.
I mean, that's what it sounds like with the 2 other reports, frankly. That's really what it sounds like, and it's fucking sad that there seemed to have been some close call to save her, but it didn't happen.
On March 24th, 2010, exactly 12 years after her disappearance, Amy Lynn Bradley was declared legally dead. That's despite no body ever being found. Some believe Alistair Yellow Douglas was behind her vanishing. Perhaps he had pushed her into the ocean after she rejected his advances. Others suspect that she was smuggled off the ship by multiple crew members.
That's what it sounds
Perhaps
like.
the simplest answer is the most likely. That these photos, and all the supposed sightings, are nothing more than red herrings, and that Amy truly did fall from the balcony.
It could be.
After all, middle-class white women from happy homes are far from your typical trafficking victims, especially when they're surrounded by their loving family, who will immediately begin searching for them, and when the operation involves smuggling them away in broad daylight. Such monsters typically target the disadvantaged, the isolated, and the vulnerable. According to her family, Amy was planning to enter a photography contest. Could it be that she stood on the small drinks table that was on the balcony to get a good shot of the sunrise over Curacao, only to fall overboard in the process? Regardless of her swimming
There's
ability,
too many theories.
falling into the water from a great height would be like hitting concrete. They say it's the not knowing that's the hardest.
Yeah.
And today, almost 3 decades since their beloved Amy vanished, the Bradley family are still searching for answers.
That's the problem, right? I mean, even us watching this video, we feel like we have a lot of different ideas, but imagine you're the family, you're someone who cares about her. You know, the rest of your life, anytime you have like time to think, your mind is going to go to that, thinking of the possibilities, of the different ideas and theories. I can only imagine. Yeah, I think this felt familiar because I had heard a similar story before. Or maybe I'd read it on Reddit, I think, about some woman kidnapped from a cruise ship. Yeah. Yeah, as you said, like maybe the reports were wrong. It's hard to tell, obviously. Yeah, I don't know what to say, except it's sad. It's just sad. This really was like the most disturbing of all the disturbing episodes I've seen. Like this one, the 3 stories, 4 stories were packed. Yeah, really packed. Okay, well, disturbing things I found on the internet, volume 16. Roof. I'll write it down, thank
On
you.
the morning of March 22nd, 2024, residents of Wasco, California, woke up to a scene straight out of a nightmare. At just after 8 a.m., an Amtrak train roared through the station at G Street and 7th, striking 48-year-old Horacio Ayala Peñalosa after he wandered too close to the tracks. Witnesses described how one
Apex
moment he was
Predator, the
there,
train.
walking
Good
his
channel.
bike and chatting with someone on a nearby bench, and the next, he was gone. The violent impact leaving his body catastrophically torn apart. It was an image seared into their memories. But as horrifying as the incident was, what happened next would leave both eyewitnesses and investigators even more scarred. As emergency crews
I forgot the BGM. The BGM is not quite scary.
arrived to secure the scene,
Sorry.
onlookers noticed another man, 27-year-old Rosendo Tejas, walking among the wreckage. And what he did defies belief. Tejas spotted one of the victim's severed legs on the track, picked it up, and in a grotesque act of disrespect, began parading it through the streets in broad daylight. Construction workers nearby recalled him sniffing it, swinging it in the air like a trophy, and even slamming it against a wall. And this wasn't just a fleeting moment of madness, though. Eyewitnesses say Tejas, who already had a warrant out for his arrest, continued brandishing the leg in front of bystanders, waving it around and chewing on it, all while
What the
laughing
fuck?
and daring people to intervene. Disturbing video footage shows him eating the leg on the street, biting off pieces and screeching at passers-by. All of this happened just steps away from police
Mess,
and railroad
maybe.
investigators who were
Coke.
still processing the train strike.
Fentanyl.
Kern County Sheriff's deputies, along with the railroad police, soon heard about what was happening and closed in. When asked whose foot he was carrying, Tejas replied, "My own." The suspect was taken into custody near 7th and F, and the partially gnawed leg and foot were recovered. As would come to light, Tejas was a homeless man who, just hours before the incident, was seen acting normally at a liquor store. After interviewing witnesses and reviewing CCTV footage, it was determined that Tejas hadn't played a role in the victim's death, which was ultimately ruled accidental. Unbelievably, there just so happened to be an opportunistic cannibal nearby when the collision occurred. Tejas was arrested on multiple other charges though, including the removal of human remains from outside a cemetery, destruction of evidence, and resisting or obstructing an officer. In handcuffs, he claimed that he was simply taking the leg to the hospital. Once booked into jail, additional charges were added for attempting to smuggle in controlled substances. It's believed they played a role in his decision-making that morning.
I hope so.
While much of the media coverage focused on the bizarre aftermath of the crash, it's important to remember that at the center of this story was a man who lost his life. Horacio Ayala Peñalosa had lived in Kern County for many years, and his sudden death shocked those who knew him. Friends and neighbors described him as a quiet, hard-working man who largely kept to himself, but was well-liked in his community. In May 2024, just weeks after the incident, Tejas entered a no-contest plea. He was sentenced to 1 year in county jail, with credit for time already served and good behavior. He's already back on the streets as we speak.
Weird case. I don't know what to say about this one. I mean, yeah, I'd like to believe drugs are the problem. Hopefully that's the problem, yeah. Also, I'm sure everybody is always commenting about that, but it is insane to me the amount of people who get killed by train. It's one of those things that seems so obvious, you know? Like, I think most of us were so used to cars, right? that we tend to be not very, not, not as careful around like roads, sidewalks, and around cars, right? I myself sometimes do something a bit stupid and realize that, because we're so used to them, right? But trains, most of us don't see a train all the time. Um, and yet we know, like, it's so easy to avoid a train. They have like a pre-planned pass, just don't be on the pass. And yet I always see so many news about people dying from trains. And, I'm not talking about like, YouTuber Franker trying to like get out of the pass of the way or something, but like just someone trying to cross at the same time as the train, or like cars stalling in the middle of like the pass. I feel like it's the kind of thing that should be like super rare, and yet it seems to be like insanely common. I mean, it's just so fucking weird to die to something so obvious because again, it's on a set pass. I don't know. I don't get it.
Next, I want to talk about one of the most disturbing industries again, data brokers. This is the website of...
I'll pass, but thank you to... My back. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello. Can I be heard? Am I alive? Oh, I think I'm back, okay. Sorry about that, guys. My OBS crashed, which is something that never happened, but it just closed off on its own. And I had to end it on Task Manager. Weird bug. Let's continue. Weird bug. The GP livestream.
Raphael Graven, better known online as Jean Parmenov, or JP.
Okay, I've seen the news of that on Reddit, but I guess I haven't seen any video about it, so I can watch it. I know it's a French streamer killed on stream, basically.
Wasn't always one of France's most talked about streamers.
By the way, just for context, I don't know, like, there's literally, like, I used to watch French YouTubers and streamers back in the day, but by, like, between 2015 and 20, I started watching less and less as I watched, like, English One or GP1, and, by the 2020s and to this day, and the last couple of years, there's literally, like, only one channel that I still follow, like I said, for any French viewers, so I literally have no idea of any French streamers or YouTubers of many years at this point. I am so out of the loop, so obviously I didn't know this guy or any of the guys who did it. Just giving context.
In his early years, he'd served in the military, an institution where he struggled to fit in, and where he reportedly endured relentless bullying. But what Raphael lacked in social skills, he made up for with a big heart. Following his time in the army, he turned his attention to online platforms, playing games and chatting candidly with fans, and he was incredibly successful with it. By the early 2020s, Jean Parmenov had become a fixture of Twitch, where he amassed an impressive following of 670,000 viewers. Eventually, he migrated to Kick, a platform known for its looser moderation rules. There, his combination of humor and unpredictable challenge segments helped him build a huge audience. By 2023, he was the most watched French creator on the site, and regularly ranked among...
I mean, to tell you, do I know anybody in this list? So I didn't even know the number one. Also, I don't watch Kick, but Amaru, Bati, Jolanaville, Vita, Kawa, Boomga, Ryu. I literally don't know any of these people, yeah. I mean, no surprise, genuinely, I don't know one.
He was the most watched French creator on the site, and regularly ranked among the site's global leaders. At first, the content seemed like typical internet showmanship. Light-hearted dares, over-the-top stunts, and long-running streams that played into the chaotic nature of Kick. But when JP began collaborating with two figures in particular, known as Owen Naruto Senazandotti and Safin Hamadi, the tone shifted. What began as edgy humor started to look more like harassment. On stream, Jean would be taunted, slapped, doused with liquids, shot with paintball guns at close range, subjected to shocks, and even throttled, with Naruto and Safin trying to set suffocation records. At one point, Naruto even had to stop Safin from choking JP, exclaiming, "Wait, he's gonna die." I'm not gonna show any of that footage here on YouTube, but trust me, it is very hard to sit through.
Yeah, it's amazing how much, Twitch doesn't have a good reputation, YouTube doesn't, but Kick in just like 2 or 3 years, right? And you guys know that like when Kick started like 2 or 3 years ago, I streamed on it for like a little bit. I was streaming games and I think reaction to stuff for like maybe a month or two. I mostly stopped not because the reputation was bad yet, but because no one watched. And it's crazy that like in just 2-3 years, yeah, this site is known as like, Twitch and YouTube aren't great, but by comparison, Kick is like where all the most fucked up people go, right? To do like the shittiest prank live streams, and the amount of like people getting banned or arrested for the kind of stuff that they do on stream over there is kind of insane. It's just like terrible.
Both Naruto and Safine were well aware that Jean suffered from heart problems, and yet they continued to subject him to more and more extreme treatment. The attacks weren't just physical, they were also psychological, with Jean's intelligence, speech difficulties, and desire to marry and start a family being the subject of endless ridicule. They once made and sold merch featuring the face of Jean's sick father without telling him, and invited teenage subscribers into the studio to laugh at his discomfort. They even laughed when Jean found out live on stream that his dog had died. His torment and exhaustion became part of the spectacle, and the crueler it got, the bigger the audience grew. Viewers.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like this has been I feel like I've heard this story before, right? Like 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I feel like not just Kick, but YouTube or Twitch as well. There has been stuff like this where like, some really fucked up stuff is happening on stream, but the audience loves it, encourage it, right? And there might be some people reporting it, but never enough to really change it. It's insane.
Tuned in daily, not just to watch Jean play games, but to watch him be broken down on camera, explode in a sudden burst of frustration, and then be put back in his place. Thousands laughed, cheered, and donated as the humiliation escalated over the course of months. What was framed as entertainment began to feel like a slow-motion train wreck, and through it all, Jean carried on streaming. According to reports, Naruto and Safine took over the channel, and the majority of the profits, leaving Jean financially dependent on them, while reminding him that without them, he'd wind up being homeless or worse. Whenever he tried to leave or refused to participate, they'd lock him out, steal his car, and harass his family. Though many assumed Jean was simply acting up for the camera, playing the part of the punching bag for views, others were concerned how real the torment appeared. In their minds, Jean was being manipulated. By his own admission, JP struggled to fit in. He was extremely lonely. He wanted friends, family, connection. In the minds of many, Naruto and Safine took advantage of that. So, when the journal Media Bar wrote an article about the situation and got the police involved, Jean protected them, telling detectives that all the violence was staged to create buzz. Yet despite his words, evidence suggests that he was more of a hostage than a willing participant. As things escalated, Raphael, sent his mother a text, in which he wrote, "Hi Mum, how are you? Stuck for a bit in Naruto's death game. It's going too far. I feel like I'm kidnapped with their shitty concept. I'm fed up. I want to get out of here. The other guy wouldn't let me. He's keeping me locked in."
Man.
By August 2025, the cycle had reached its peak. Jean & Co launched an ultra-marathon broadcast that stretched on for nearly 12 days. Viewers watched as he was beaten, forced to ingest toxic products, and constantly deprived of sleep. As days passed, he slurred words, struggled to keep moving, and was literally withering in front of everyone's eyes. And yet, the cameras kept rolling. His diminished.
I'm assuming again, like some people must have reported it, right, to Kick, to the police, but then they just look at the incident report, right? They see that, this happened before, and the guy said, no, it's fine, it's all for the camera, and so they don't intervene, right? Yeah.
Health was obvious to everyone, including those inside the room with him, with Naruto at one point stating, "Say on camera right now that if you die tomorrow in the middle of a live stream, it's because of your state of health and not because of us." Jean initially refused, but Naruto kept pushing. "We're in the middle of a live show. you get angry, start screaming, and go into cardiac arrest. People are gonna take it out on us when it's due to your 46 years of miserable life. This was clearly an attempt to absolve themselves of any responsibility when, not if, the worst happened. On August 18th, with the on-screen counters showing almost 300 hours of continuous broadcast and over 36,000 euros worth of donations, Jean began exhibiting breathing difficulties, and at one point asked to be...
I wonder if, like, you know, those people that donate, they feel bad about it later. You know, how much of them would actually, like, feel any kind of remorse about it? That they literally were participating in this madness, directly contributing to it, partially responsible.
Taken to the hospital. His request was ignored. Later, he collapsed live on camera, and instead of help, his so-called friends kept streaming before going to bed in the same room. Those tuned in sent donations, urging the others to check on JP. 50 minutes later, Naruto responded by throwing a water bottle at Jean's head while asking, "Is he dead?" When he didn't react, they checked his vital signs. The atmosphere became tense, and the stream cut to black. Hours later, Naruto made an announcement on Instagram. "Unfortunately, JP has left us. I love you, my brother, and we will miss you terribly." He also urged viewers not to share clips of Jean's final moments out of respect, which many interpreted as damage control. Following an autopsy, it was determined that there were no fatal injuries, no blow that killed Jean, and that his COD was likely medical and/or toxicological in nature. Yet despite having defenders, many believe that Naruto and Safin should still face criminal charges, arguing that their treatment of Jean likely exacerbated his medical conditions. Indeed, he had repeatedly stated that he was feeling increasingly stressed doing the live streams, and near the end was constantly looking for ways out, yet the others kept finding ways to reel him back in. Others attributed the same blame to the thousands of people who tuned in day after day to laugh at Jean and financially contributed to his mistreatment. Indeed, if you scroll through any of the Jean Parmenoff uploads on YouTube, you'll find plenty of people making jokes at his expense and encouraging Naruto and Safin. Others still...
At the same time, I'm thinking, like, I don't want to act like a saint. You know, like, sometimes, you know, I've definitely done something like this in a sense. Like watching someone be pranked or somewhat bullied and laughing, and then, you know, you just look at some, like, stupid, like, short video or something on YouTube or something, on Reddit, and you don't realize what it is, you know? But I feel like it's very different from watching, like, hours and hours of live stream like this. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think how much are the viewer responsible and how much should they feel bad. I'm trying to think about that, but I don't have an answer.
Argue that Kick France, who were well aware of the Jean Parmenoff streams, were grossly negligent and should have shut them down rather than advertise them, which they did on social media time and time again, plastering Jean's bruised and muddied face on merch, comparing him to Deadpool, putting profits before people, and acting like a company straight from a Black Mirror episode. Kick has since banned Naruto and Safin's accounts, but though they initially took down the Jean Parmenoff channel as well, it has since been reinstated. Unbelievably, Kick themselves deleted all of the clips showing Jean's obvious torture, only leaving behind the ones which fit with their narrative of consent, all to protect their own image. Aiden Ross, one of Kick's biggest streamers, and Drake, who has business ties to Stake, the crypto gambling company behind Kick, announced that they would cover Raphael Graven's funeral expenses, which to me reeks of PR damage control. France's digital ministry blasted the platform's moderation, and the site is now facing a potential $49.5 million fine. French regulators Arcom have also been dragged into this. Their role is to regulate online content, but despite Mediapart warning them almost a year earlier about the streams, they sat on their hands. Now politicians are weighing in, pushing for new internet regulations like those recently implemented in the UK, essentially using Raphael's death as a pretext for greater surveillance.
Yep.
Following Raphael's passing, prosecutors opened an investigation, not into murder, but into what's known as abuse of weakness, a charge that can only apply when someone is manipulated or exploited, especially while in a vulnerable state, That investigation is still ongoing, though as of today, neither Naruto, Safine, or anyone else has faced criminal charges. Their lawyers continue to insist that Raphael passed naturally from health complications, and that he consented to everything that happened on stream. That's despite the fact that in France, you can't legally consent to being tortured, beaten, or seriously harmed. They're now playing the sympathy card, claiming to be the targets of cyberbullying.
Obviously.
During Jean's funeral, which Naruto...
Obviously, I'm hoping that this ends with them facing something, but I can't tell you. You know, I made that point in the chat about, like, do you trust your justice system? Personally, I think France is basically the same as, like, all the other countries. It's extremely mixed. You know, like, it's the same bullshit that you see sometimes. Like, someone raping someone gets, like, 10 years, and someone, selling drugs or something gets 50. It's sometimes that kind of bullshit. So I wonder with this one what will happen. I have no idea. I'm guessing there's no big precedent with this one. It's unique to online culture, so.
When Safine attended, JP's mother raised eyebrows when she spoke in their defense. Despite receiving Jean's final text message and watching her son's final stream, she said, "Naruto and Safine took good care of my son, just as I did. They have values. JP was able to do things with them that he wasn't able to do back home. They never mistreated him, except once in the gym. What happens in the livestream is in the livestream. What happens off the livestream is off the livestream. When they go home, they don't take their work home with them." In stark contrast, JP's sister described their behavior as unacceptable. To some, the Jean Parmenov stream was a tragic accident, an exhausted but consenting man whose body finally gave out. But I think it's obvious that this was something much darker.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and I stress opinion, Jean was broken down by a group of men much younger than him, both physically and mentally, for financial gain. He was beaten as a teenager, harassed during his years in the army, and exploited on stream by people pretending to be his friends.
Frankly, like, I think what's, the way he looks, this kind of, like, very slim, the kind of auto face, etc. It reminds me of one guy that I used to work with at a place where we cut trees and, vegetation and all that in rivers in France, right? It was a place for people with troubles, right? There was people fleeing war in Iraq or something. There was people getting out of prison and trying to reintegrate and stuff like that. And one of them was this guy called Patrick. He was this very small guy in late 40s, very slim, exactly almost the same look as this guy, right? Like, not the same face, but the same kind of look, like this kind of weak older guy who just gets easily bullied, right? Estranged from his wife and son, often coming in the morning drunk, 1 second an happy drunk, next second like a angry drunk. And he was kind of like that, basically. There was other guys who he would always try to, like, play the funny guy and let himself be, like, slightly bullied. Thankfully, like, it wasn't anything bad at the place I worked at. It was more like, it was just, to be liked by everybody and to make people laugh. He would always kind of, almost make himself the butt of the joke, or, like, throw himself into branches on the ground or some dumb stuff like that. And just looking at this guy, even though, again, I haven't seen, like, much clip or anything, it reminds me so much of that guy. Except, again, like, in this case, clearly he was really taking advantage to a whole different level, yeah. Just someone who, like, is kind of weak, used to being bullied, and kind of used to get friends and attention. He has to let himself be bullied, I guess. Yeah.
As one YouTube comment on Charlie's coverage of this story put it, he was killed on the inside before his actual death. And worryingly, it's now looking like he'll be let down by the system, too.
I hope there's some justice. Absolutely fucked. Yeah. But I mean, it's not the only time stuff like this happened. I feel like there was just news of some big chess YouTuber streamer just killed himself, right? Because some other big chess guy bullied him for a long time. Yeah.
Patreon supporters may remember me covering This Is Not a Cult.xyz in an exclusive segment. Well, there's since been an update. So for those of you who missed it, here's a recap.
Not a cult.
If you visit the ominous-sounding website, this is not a cult.xyz, the only thing you'll be met with is a black screen with a play icon. No text, no context, just an eerie message in the address bar, and an invitation to click.
Jump scare time. That is properly creepy. Sounds like a baby crying with a filter, I guess. Nice music though. Okay. It's not scary when it goes on too long, you know? That's what I say about horror games, where you have to collect something or find something. Like, it's scary until you're bored because you're looking for something. Sure, the noises are weird, but... It sounds like a baby with a voice filter.
The only thing hosted on this website is the dedicated video you've just seen, which has to be one of the more unsettling things I've watched in a while. It opens with silence and a static-filled screen. After almost 20 seconds, a close-up of what appears to be a mummified face fills half the screen. The nose appears flattened, the teeth jut out, the eyes are wide open, but vacant. The figure doesn't blink, doesn't breathe, doesn't move at all, but the changing camera angle and lighting indicates that this isn't a still frame. It's a genuine video recording, made by someone standing over the figure. As for the audio, there are only 2 tracks, one a haunting gospel choir, and the other, which on first listen, sounds like a chimp grunting and screaming.
Chimp.
But after looping it for a few times, you start to get the impression that something's off. So let's reverse the audio.
Oh. I always forget about reversible audio. Yeah, not a baby.
Okay, so definitely not chimp-like. If we speed it up slightly, it becomes even more clear. That confirms, in my mind, that the grunts are indeed the cries of a human being, layered atop a piece of music. In between the screams are rattling clangs, as if being made by someone in a cage, and the distinct sound of someone fiddling with recording equipment.
We can hear someone breathing.
There's been a concerted effort to identify the angelic piece of music that plays in the background, with hundreds of people scouring YouTube and Spotify in search of this hauntingly beautiful track. But thus far, nobody's been able to find it.
Really?
After repeated listens, I think the lyrics begin with, "He's my Lord, He's my Savior in this world, Prince of Peace."
Ease of Peace or Prince of Peace, yeah. I still don't know if finding the song will really link to this.
Into Google doesn't yield any solid leads though. But then again, I'm not confident that my interpretation is even remotely accurate. As unsettling as this whole video is, if we look into the domain itself, we can see that this is not a cult.xyz is a bare-bones Wix premium site that was registered in Toronto, Canada back in 2023, but that's currently being hosted in Kansas City, USA. Browsing through the HTML code, we can see that there are a couple of Easter eggs hidden inside. Too creepy, but obviously AI-generated images.
Okay.
Digging deeper, we can see that the site has an exposed but broken shopping page, which the creator seemingly forgot to hide. The mundane and clumsy setup of the site strongly indicates to me that it's the early breadcrumb of an ARG, or an eccentric digital art project.
Sure, yeah.
Still, it wouldn't be the first time that an analog horror series exploited genuine snuff audio and visuals. But in my honest opinion, as detailed as the figure is, its nose, or more specifically, the septum, appears extremely fake. Although I don't think these are prosthetics, because the figure remains far too still, I suspect that this is a prop head, similar to those made by Close Casket Studios.
I mean, I can't say
Perhaps
much. I'm not used to looking at mummified pictures myself. Mr. Lazy Masquerade, I guess you are.
Because of the use of night vision, some have suggested that this was a bizarre marketing campaign for a game in the Outlast series. Some have speculated Outlast 2, though that game
is that just Outlast they use night vision?
And the website was registered in November 2023. So if correct, it would have had to have been for 2024's The Outlast Trials.
Which is different.
If that's the case, then this attempt at viral marketing didn't pay off, as I haven't seen many content creators covering This Is Not a Cult.xyz. There's also no link to the game on the website.
I feel like the main reason people don't cover this is because there's like thousands of stuff like this. Like it's so easy to make a website and then just embed a video like this or a little bit of like creepy images and music. And a ton of people have done that as like, you know, just spooky stuff to link their friend or something. You know, so a lot of those are just that.
And I doubt a professional developer would use Wix. It's more likely that the grainy night vision aesthetic was used to simply mask the more unrealistic parts of the prop itself and to make the visuals more spooky. Interestingly, there was a musical called Not a Cult, which held performances in Toronto during November 2024, exactly 1 year after the website appeared. Given that the site was registered in Toronto, it would be a huge coincidence if it weren't connected to the show. Thing is, from what I've read, the musical's described as a dark and camp comedy, a far cry from the website's grim and joyless tone. There was also this Atlanta-based series of events in July 2024. Its name? This Is Not a Cult. From what I can tell though, it was an immersive experience run by the You Did This theatre company, in which the audience could build their own cult together. Again, the show emphasized the comedy of cultdom by urging participants to drink the Kool-Aid, so although the name matches, and the timing broadly syncs up with the creation of the website, I'm leaning towards this being yet another coincidence.
Maybe.
One of the few YouTubers who has covered this mystery is Podrocker, and while browsing the comment section beneath his video, I noticed this user, Him, leaving ominous remarks. Clicking on his channel, Him's bio links to This Is Not a Cult.xyz. The only video on his channel is this psychedelic upload, which, when sped up, reveals a hidden message.
Oh. Hallelujah. That's the message. Great.
Following that discovery, more hidden elements of the site were unearthed. In June of this year, Mag2K made a post over on Reddit, detailing how if you add /WeFoundYou to the URL, a new page reveals itself, which seems to scroll on infinitely.
Horrible gods in my body.
1H, 1M, 1S. Likely 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second, but also him. Since covering this a few months back, the mystery of This Is Not a Cult.xyz has been resolved.
Okay.
In a post over on the r/internet mysteries subreddit, User Yarnface00 explained,
It was viral marketing.
I genuinely don't know if this is old news, since I'm not super active on this sub, and I
I
don't
see.
know if this fully warrants the solved flare, since there may be more to it. But I thought I'd post about this in case no one else has. Tonight was a Scream Unseen showing at AMC Theatres, which just means that you get to see an early screening of an unreleased film for like $5. The only caveat being that you don't know what the movie is when you buy your ticket. Tonight's movie, spoiler alert, was Bring Her Back, the follow-up A24 film by the directors of Talk to Me.
It's
During
A24.
the opening titles, a brief
Big
clip of
horror
a
movie
creepy,
company.
wriggling fetus creature with a grainy filter blade, ending with the text, "This is not a cult.xyz," popping up on screen. I remember a lot of YouTubers talking about this website a few months ago, and I wasn't sure if any more progress had been made into figuring out its deal, but it looks like it was a piece of viral marketing for this movie. There are
But how is it viral marketing if it's not even linking to the movie? Like, everybody doesn't know what this weird video was for, so it didn't really market the movie.
similar creepy VHS footage scenes in the film itself as well. And without spoiling too much, decomposing corpses are pretty central to the whole story. Well, that thankfully confirms that this isn't a real corpse, and that the website was indeed a marketing campaign. Not for the Outlast trials like I guessed, but for the horror movie Bring Her Back, directed by the Raka Raka Filippo brothers, who definitely have a substantial amount of ARG experience under their belts, having played a significant creative role in Ash vlogs. Indeed, eagle-eyed viewers noticed another URL hidden within the movie, which directed them to a Russian dark website, supposedly selling resurrection footage and evil blood, with a timer for users to make offers within. I'm personally pretty impressed by this marketing campaign. It's not only aesthetically disturbing, but extremely intricate, with hidden clues and iconography that are still being discovered. So though I don't typically cover ARGs on this channel, I thought I might make an exception for this one. Though I'd still like to know what that piece of choir music is.
Contact the creator, I guess. But again, I'm still confused. I thought the point of stuff like this is to promote the movie, but this website had nothing that even links to the movie until you watch the actual movie, so how did it promote the movie? I'm confused. Interesting though, interesting. The Jack Loise
In 2011,
emails.
two men from Pennsylvania received separate emails from their friend, Jack, referencing events that had either just happened or that only he could have known about. There was just one problem.
He was dead.
Jack was dead. Jack Rose was
Well.
a 32-year-old man from Dunmore, known by friends and family for his sarcastic sense of humor, his warmth, and his deep passion for life. In June 2011, Jack passed away suddenly from heart arrhythmia. His death came as a devastating shock to those close to him, and like many people who lose someone suddenly, his loved ones were left grappling with grief, unanswered questions, and the lingering desire for one more conversation. Several months after Jack's death, in November 2011, one of his closest childhood friends, a man named Tim Hard, was browsing through his inbox when he noticed an email with a concerning subject line.
I'm watching.
Even more eerie was that the sender was Jack. A little freaked out,
Someone like Tim.
opened the email.
Did you hear me? I am at your house. Clean your fucking attic.
The body of the message hit Tim like a ton of bricks. He and Jack had spent plenty of time joking around in the attic, and on one of Jack's final visits before his death, they had laughed about how messy it was up there. Jack even joked that he would clean it if Tim wouldn't. No one else could have known that detail. To Tim, the email felt far too specific to be coincidence. Desperate for answers, he replied,
Couple ideas is like, one is like one of his other friend doing a dumb prank, right? Another friend who might have heard the conversation or been told and knows the context. The other thing is that maybe this guy forgets, but he texted about that in either mails or text. And if someone hacked that account trying to mess with other people, they would read some of the message and try to act as a person.
but received no response. Soon after, Jack's cousin, Jimmy McGraw,
Could also be a
received
scheduled
message
email.
from him while he was still deeply in mourning.
Hey Jim, how you doing? I knew you were gonna break your ankle. Tried to warn you. Gotta be careful.
Jimmy had indeed broken his ankle just a week before that message arrived, long after Jack had passed away, and the strange timing of the email made it all the more difficult to dismiss. Like many unexplained digital events, theories abound. Given his sense of humor, the most rational explanation is that Jack had written drafts or scheduled emails that only sent after his death.
Yeah, but the ankle one is specific.
He was about to die. His passing had been sudden and unexpected, and he wouldn't have had a reason to preemptively write the messages. Their specificity, with one referring to an event that occurred after he passed, seemed to rule this theory out. Another possibility is that someone hacked or gained access to Jack's emails and sent the messages as a cruel prank. However, Jack was tech-savvy, hadn't shared his password with anyone, and there was no evidence that someone had illicitly accessed his account. And even if they had, what would be the point of it? Certainly not infamy, as they never came forward and stopped sending the messages abruptly. That, along with the personal nature of the content, with the first email referencing a conversation that Jack alone knew about, makes this explanation unsatisfying.
If Jack is sure.
Some of Jack's friends and family believe that the emails were a form of communication from beyond the grave.
Of course, yeah.
To them, the messages felt less like the work of a troll, and more like personal reassurances from Jack himself, designed to comfort those that he left behind. But skeptics suggest that grief can make people interpret coincidences as...
I mean, if the family is fine with that, that's a good thing, right? Otherwise, they will be scared for a while after that. But if they tell themselves something like that, good for them.
Meaningful. The Jack Frost emails have become one of the most famous modern ghost stories on the internet, and in a world where our identities live on digitally long after we're gone, this
I mean, where are we going with AI, right? My first thought, and I'm sure everybody's first thought, is like, you know, stuff like this will get so weird with AI, as you can make AI of people, you know, they can make AI of themselves, and bunch of stuff like that, where you can just imagine the endless possibilities of weirdness that would happen from it.
It forces us to confront questions about technology and mortality. Though some websites delete the accounts of deceased users after receiving proof of death, nor after long periods of inactivity, others allow them to gather dust and become part of the great digital graveyard, perhaps leaving them vulnerable to access. Though some view the messages as disturbing, for Jack's cousin Jimmy, they've been more of a comfort than anything else. "I like to think that Jack sent them," he said. "It's like he's gone, but still trying to reach out, trying to tell me to move forward, to feel better." Even Jack's mother chose to see them as a kind of gift. "I saw they made some people happy," she said. "They upset some people too, but at least people were still talking about him." That quote has led some to come up with a new theory, that the person behind the emails was actually Jack's own mum.
Could be.
Given his sudden
Could be someone close,
his
yeah.
accounts likely would have still been open on his laptop. While cleaning house, she may well have come across the open email tab and thought that by sending the messages, she might be able to cheer up his friends and keep his memory alive, and didn't anticipate the amount of tension the story would attract, nor the amount of pushback.
That's the most likely thing,
One way
yeah.
or the other, the Jack Frost emails remain an eerie piece of
A
internet.
family member, yeah. Makes
I
sense.
first learned about them over on the Chill Fuel YouTube channel. He covers a wide range of internet mysteries with a really cool pixel art style. Be sure to check him out through the link down below.
Okay, well. Good one. This one is less scary, but interesting. Frankly, like the difference between volume 15 and 16 in terms of scariness is something, or disturbingness. Okay, well, another good episode of Disturbing Things.